एक ऐड हुआ करता था जिसकी टैगलाइन थी, सोच बदलो दुनिया बदलेगी। और आज की डिजिटल दुनिया में ये और भी ज़्यादा लागू होता है। To keep up with the times, it is paramount that we change the skew of our perspectives, reinvent our thinking, and innovate not just our systems, but indeed ourselves. To understand what that means on the ground, up next we have for you a panel discussion on innovations that will power the next decade. I would now like to invite Mr. Sameer Khetarpal, Director, Amazon India, to please introduce the panel.
Hello friends, welcome to this panel discussion. We have a very interesting agenda and set of panelists today. The world looks extremely uncertain and predictable as we see it today, but however, the pace of innovation is also the strongest. Centuries of innovation is now collapsed into decades and decades into years. It is touching lives at our homes, government to citizen services, and also businesses. From physical retail to outer space, from energy to healthcare, all sectors are being reinvented. We have a very diverse, a young panel today. These are founders and innovators who are going to talk about four and bring their learnings across four sectors: financial services, e-commerce, logistics, and agriculture. Let me introduce the panel. To start with, Gazal Kalra. Gazal is a co-founder at Rivigo and highly accomplished woman. As you know, you may know about Rivigo. Rivigo started with a very simple idea of getting a truck driver back home before the shift or the day ends. It created, it's one of the earliest tech logistic startups in India. Cut down travel time by half between Delhi and Bombay and other places. And I think the idea over here was not only to have very strong user experience, but also social impact. Gazal is an alumna of IIT Delhi and Stanford. She's highly accomplished, 40 under 40, a Fulbright scholar, and one of the most rated as one of the most powerful women business leaders in India by Business Today. Welcome, Gazal. Moving on to Mark. Mark is works in a sector, agriculture, which is called very traditional. He's founder and leader of Omnivore, which is India's first and the pioneering agriculture VC fund, managing more than $130 million of investments. And also, you would have heard about SkyMet weather, which kind of competes with IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, to predict to monsoon and forecast monsoon movement in India. Is one of the investee companies. Mark is very accomplished himself. He's a Baker Scholar from Harvard Business School. He's also representing or leading the task force at CII on agritech startups. Mark, very inspiring to have you here, and thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Then on to Nithin. Nithin was a trader himself, and he found so many opportunities. He started his own company called Zerodha. Zerodha means no barriers or zero barriers in English, and it's India's largest retail broking firm with 4 million customers, and also contributing to almost 15% of the trading volume. Nithin is not resting there. He's founded two additional things. One is started a fund to cultivate and boost technology and innovation in the fintech space called Rainmatters. He's also started Rainmatters Climate Fund, India's first fund to boost innovation and solutions for climate matters. So Nithin, very, very inspiring. Sounds like a lot of achievement for your black hair. Awesome to have you.
Thanks, Samir.
Last but not the least, Sugam Jan. Again, a very young entrepreneur founder, but a veteran. And when I learned about his name, somebody told me he's a veteran in e-commerce ecosystem. Incidentally, he was a seller on Amazon, and he saw all the problems that many of you face, and created a one-stop shop logistics firm called Shyplite. So Shyplite is bringing small and big retailers online and offline, and powering them with very simple solutions to whether it's B2B, whether it's cross-border trade, or directly to the consumers. So Sugam has been at the forefront at solving really tough problems, whether it's small scale or big scale. Sugam knows is powering using technology to solve some very hard problems. So Sugam, awesome to have you. Look forward to a terrific discussion.
Thank you.
Awesome. So let's go deep into it. Let's pick up the first topic, which is breakthrough innovation in your sectors. I'll start with Nithin first. Nithin, you've built a fintech company that uses technology to empower almost 4 million consumers and millions of transactions every day. When you look inside your organization, what are the innovations that you are most excited about? Now, also bring in some learning from other fund that you have incubated, and what are some of the things that you are most excited about when you look at next decade?
This has been quite a crazy year for broking firms. We are already at 5 million customers, so we were. So I'm guessing from the note that was sent to you to now, so it's kind of adding quite fast. So last year, when the sudden rush started, we realized a lot of people coming into the market are first-time investors, and they need some kind of handholding. So I think the most excited I am right now is of this platform called Nudge, which we have built on top of our trading platform. Think of this like almost like an assistant who is trying to kind of nudge you away from making trading mistakes, right? So essentially, when investing in the markets, there are 4 or 5 fundamental rules to follow, right? Things like don't concentrate, don't go against the trend, remember about disposition bias and things like that, right? So we have incorporated all of these rules as within this Nudge, the platform. So the first thing that happened last year when the rush happened was a lot of first-time investors started buying penny stocks, right? So what we did was the platform today, if you want to go buy penny stock on our platform, we kind of scare the shit out of you saying, what, you can lose the entire capital. Are you sure you want to go ahead? And then we have this TOTP kind of a roadblock. So we make it slower for the customer. So he can always override it, but so we just slow it down for him. So this after this change, our penny stock trading volumes are down 70% to pre that nudge to post the nudge. So this whole the fact that we can actually make such a behavioral change using technology is quite exciting. On the Rainmatter Fintech, we started in 2016 to kind of grow the capital market ecosystem in this country. So we said India doesn't need another buy-sell trading platform. India needs a Uber, WhatsApp kind of a moment where some startup comes, builds an innovative solution, and they don't really have to go build all the dirty pieces of the financial ecosystem, which is the exchange compliances, connecting to various exchanges, all of that. So we said we have built all of this. You can use our APIs and kind of build on top of it. So there are around 20 startups who build very niche user experiences, and so it's been a good year for all of them actually. So it's just there's been such a rush of first-time investors. I think few enabled because the fixed deposit rates are quite low. Few enabled because people had more time, they had more savings. So all of and in between all of these markets did well. So I think it was like a force multiplier of sorts. But then personally, as I said, I mean, this nudge, the platform that we're building is what we are most excited about.
Gazal, let me move on to you. You founded Rivigo in 2014. I'm not sure how many tech logistics startups were there then. While it was maybe 7 years ago, but since then, a lot has changed. How technology is changing your sector? Can you tell us what lies ahead when you look forward from your vantage point in the next decade?
So logistics has been a very interesting space, the past 7-8 years, and I think the next 10 years is definitely going to bring in a lot more of disruption. I mean, we was the early sort of movers in this sector. I still remember when we moved in, people were, questioning our choice of whether you want to be in the sector because it was so unorganized and so, the penetration of technology was absolutely not there. So looking forward, I think the next 10 years, one major sort of shift that's going to happen is, the whole logistics sector going paperless and completely digital. And, you'd be surprised the amount of paper that floats in a logistics transaction. And the result of it is none of these transactions is fully online. And the amount of sort of working capital stuck for small businessmen, small manufacturers, and just getting the PODs, etc., so that they can invoice to the customer is just, capital sitting blocked there. So I think this sort of digital wave, which started as a result of COVID, frankly, we saw a lot of our customers shift to our sort of digital, sort of paperless solutions because, it had to be contactless. So that's going to sort of lay the foundation of much more sort of commerce kind of services and also fintech in logistics, which is frankly ripe for disruption. The other thing I think, which will, be sort of something to look out for is, data-led, insights and actionables, for which the base of IoT is set over the last 7 years. When we entered, we were the first ones to say, a truck should be a smart truck, right? Your supply chain should be, transparent and traceable. But we've seen that shift happening as more adoption has happened and devices have become commoditized. And now you can build actual sort of, data-led tools in supply chain, whether for planning or for transparent supply chains. And last trend, of course, is going to be electric vehicles. That is sort of a macro trend sort of around the world, but India is also sort of, leading the charge on it. So in logistics, we are going to see a lot of that trend to make, supply chains more sustainable and reducing the carbon footprint.
Mark, you're next. You are a founder yourself and an investor. You looked at multiple opportunities. Agriculture is a sector that is often viewed as traditional, unglamorous. Not much innovation can be done over here, especially in India. But yet, you invested in multiple companies. So what are some of the breakthrough ideas that will change the lives of farmers in India? There are 700 million 700 million of our population is dependent upon agriculture as a sector. So what lies ahead? What are some of the breakthrough ideas that you are seeing?
So I think it's worth understanding that the greatest challenge in Indian agriculture is fragmentation, right? Fragmentation is what defines our agricultural economy. We have 130 million farmers and their families. When you put it all together, it's an impressive chunk of the economy because agriculture is much more than just primary growing. It's everything that flows downstream. Our textile sector comes from the fact that India is the world's largest cotton producer. There's so many aspects of food processing, of rural logistics that are linked to the ag sector. But at its most basic level, it is hyper fragmented into small holdings that are just a little bit larger than a hectare. I think what is so exciting about agritech, about our space in the last few years, is that digital technologies are allowing new players to organize these small holdings, to organize this hyper fragmented ecosystem, and not just upstream, where we have these 130 million farmers, but also in the midstream, where we have traders and commission agents and artias, where we have, agricultural input dealers, where we have logistics. And so really what we've seen in our ecosystem in the last few years are various platforms, marketplaces, and different approaches to organizing this space, organizing the sale of inputs, organizing the movement of agricultural goods, organizing farmers, where you essentially move them out of their terrible status quo to a world where they have direct market linkages, inclusive fintech, and very, very actionable advisory, so that they can increase their incomes by 50 to 100%. These are some of the challenges that we're seeing agritech entrepreneurs working on. And look, I've been in this space for a long time. It was decidedly unglamorous when we started. In the last 3 to 4 years, what we've seen is an explosion of generalist VC and strategic interest in the space, because I think everyone is interested, right, in the next 500 million users. And you cannot separate those next 500 million users in India from agriculture. And so if you're going to solve for that problem, you're going to have to attack this space with agritech solutions.
I'll move on to Sugam next. Sugam, through Shyplite, you work with thousands of SMBs. And I think this government has been making a lot of changes to their policies to include SMBs. And also SMBs are in fact the bedrock of innovation. How do you see technology changing the way Indian SMBs conduct their businesses?
Right, Smbs. So we work with businesses of all kinds, of all sizes, day in, day out, and we work very closely with them. With the core part of their business, which is operations. How they produce, how they sell, how they ship, and even the post shipping experience of the customers and the sellers. And we ourselves have seen a quantum shift in the past 5 years, and especially after COVID, in how every business is conducting their business now. Technology adoption, the rate of technology adoption has increased. Previously, like when we started out 5 years back, we used to see a lot of sellers using manual processes to do everything from starting from cataloging to shipping to tracking. And in these past 5 years, there has been a massive shift in the collective behavior, not just any individual seller or any specific scale of sellers, but there has been a collective shift in the behavior of businesses, where they have implemented technology solutions in every aspect. So we have also seen a huge increase in demand of local products, right? Where post-COVID, people have started ordering, from a pin to plane, everything online, and the SMBs have been at the forefront of catering this demand. And to cater to this huge demand of varied products, varied categories, they have had to upgrade their entire infrastructure, and as a result, they are growing faster now. We have seen sellers grow their volumes 2x, 3x, and even more, with time, with the adoption of technology. And as we improve and innovate, we also help our customers grow. First the business went from local to national, and now it's a right. I think the path is clear for them, for every business to go global, and we are helping them to get there. We see a very strong demand in warehousing and fulfillment. Where the sellers are able to store their goods across the nation and reduce the delivery times. That is one focus area that we are working on. And then we also are working on a very basically a robust return and return prevention, That is one pain area for the businesses, for the e-commerce businesses, and then the return reduction. So with that, because it takes a lot of capital, it's a lot of cost when we talk about returns. We also see a model of omni-channel retail, shipping through the retail outlets picking up a lot. Before COVID, it was it was a talk, it was a discussion, but now it is happening. We see goods being shipped out from the retail stores, returns coming back to the retail stores. And then, I think everyone would agree, the hyperlocal deliveries, Samir, I think that's right under your segment. The hyperlocal deliveries have picked up so much. It used to be a struggling industry, the cost didn't work out, and now it is a thriving industry in 1 year. So that is, these are the areas that we focus on to ease the pain of the e-commerce sellers and businesses overall for industries.
Thanks for these insights, Sugam. Let me move to the part 2 of this discussion, which is impact of COVID on the businesses. Gazal, let me start with you for this section. Your company is all about making logistics human. COVID-19 has impacted human lives in ways that we could never have imagined. Can you speak a little bit about how the pandemic has changed the logistics sector?
Sure. Thanks, Samir. Of course, COVID-19 has been a big disruption across the world, but specifically for logistics, it has meant that CEOs and business leaders had to sit back and realize how fragile the supply chains were. I mean, supply chain or logistics function in any company is never the CEO's agenda or a board agenda, right? I mean, it's at the end of the day moving a package from one place to the other, and there were not very high expectations in terms of service standards, whether that is transit times or sort of reliability of services. It was mostly driven around the cost metrics. So one of the things that we saw was, COVID-19 has given a burning platform for companies to shape their strategy for what future supply chain do they want. And there are clearly two themes that I've seen across our client base, and I mean there are a lot of stories related to it. But one of the data that struck me, I was reading a couple of months ago, was that about 75% of CEOs and business leaders felt that COVID-19 had a detrimental impact on their supply chain. So, and about 20% were neutral. So really 5% felt that, COVID-19, they could sustain the COVID-19 impact because the supply chains were sort of geared up for it. And the two themes really are, one, automation and making logistics and supply chain less people dependent. I mean, we all know that this is a very sort of people intensive sector, and more so in India because because of the availability of labor, right? And the right investments in automation and sort of digitalization of the supply chain has not happened. And one of the themes is to make it resilient. You have to make it people independent, because during COVID, I mean, we saw workers moving back to their hometowns and sort of people moving to contactless deliveries and making it paperless. The other theme that is sort of emerging is that not you want to diversify your sourcing and also sort of de-risk dependency on any node in your supply chain, and that requires a lot of sort of planning, scenario building, analytics, etc. And not a lot of companies have that capability or can invest in in-house talent in supply chain to come up with such robust strategies. And one of the trends we're seeing is actually supply chain as a service, which basically means that a lot of companies are looking at complete end-to-end supply chain outsourcing to other companies who provide the automation, and deliver on the key metrics. So it's not just looking for service partners to do your primary or secondary distribution or warehousing, but really looking at an end-to-end solution, which includes planning and bringing those sort of efficiencies and resilience in supply chains.
Mark, you're next. You've said COVID has accelerated innovation in agritech, and it is true that the sector has received a lot more attention in the aftermath of COVID. So what's unique about food and agriculture as a sector, and how did COVID provide tailwinds to the sector's growth?
Look, I want to take everyone back almost exactly 12 months, right? And in the beginning of the first lockdown, we all learned a new word, and that word, or a new word in the context of business, and that word was essential. What was essential and what was non-essential. And the very, very, top of essential was agriculture and food. I think, the government realized really within 2 weeks of lockdown that they had to keep the ag sector going. That first of all, to some extent, it's naturally socially distanced because you have farmers living on farms. And so it doesn't pose the same risks, but moreover, you needed to keep the cities going. And the rural economy was really, for, I would say, the first half of FY 2021, what kept India going, right, from a GDP perspective. And so I think in that moment, right, maybe it was just a lot of VCs stuck at home, right, having to think about where they were going to get food from. There was a paradigm shift of sorts where a lot of investors that had never been especially interested in this space or had sat on the sidelines suddenly said, okay, well, what's out there to still invest in? Food and ag, education, remote work, healthcare, and it became one of the top 4 themes of this year. And I think we've just seen a fantastic amount of capital, of interest coming into our space. And I think what happened was farmers surged onto these platforms in order to find markets for their produce, in order to find inputs when the local dealer shop was closed. And so actual metrics of our space have gone sharply up and to the right over the course of the last 12 months because of COVID.
I'll move on to Sugam next. And Sugam, resilience is the term often used to define some businesses. And how have Indian SMBs built resilience in the aftermath of COVID? What do you think Indian SMBs can do differently to further build this resilience? We are still not shock proof because shocks are going to probably come faster and even greater in strength.
Right, Samir. So I feel that as Indians, we are inherently resilient beings, and it reflects in our businesses as well. Whatever Indian businessmen build, that resilience shows there, it reflects there. And ironically, like Mark said, going back 12 months, ironically, when the shipping was halted, when the lockdown happened, and only essential goods started moving, that was the time we saw the most leads coming in. That was the time when every Indian SMB was preparing for getting online. That was the first thought and the first action that every business took was to get online. And at that time there was an influx. We were getting 5x queries during lockdown regarding how to get online to add us as a logistics partner to the business. So that I think reflects the resilience that the businesses have shown by getting prepared for the restart, and businesses have focused on automating and digitizing maximum functions, like even customer support by adopting chatbots. They've created virtual sales processes. They have moved a lot of logistics on autopilot, and these help. These things help create a strong fundamental for future growth and future basically shock proofing the business, like you said. And like Gazal said, I think she said most of the things that I was trying to I wanted to say, that it is very, very people dependent, and logistics has traditionally been a very manual and intensive function, not just for the supply chain people but for businesses as well. So that is where more digital transformation and adoption is required, which we are working on with every kind of business, every size of business at every level. Post-COVID, this the huge shift in consumer behavior has paved a new base for the supply chain people to innovate, to bring out new solutions, and we work on the same logistic requirements for e-commerce. Retail sector is getting reshaped with lot of automation and fulfillment demand coming in. Cross-border expansion queries have doubled, tripled. That is one area that we are seeing a lot of growth in. And the business infra, if you talk about resilience, the infrastructure, the fundamentals should be such that the business is ready for scale to handle probably 2x, 3x volume. That should be built today, and it should not hinder the business operations when the orders start moving and when the volume starts coming in. And I think with COVID happening, big change has been that the customers are not being able to go to the sellers, to the shops, to the stores. So this shift of the reversal of businesses being able to reach to the customer rather than customer reaching the business, that has changed a lot of things how business operate, a lot of processes, a lot of things. And I would say to build resilience, one important thing is to identify the right set of partners that will be standing with you and shock-proofing the business, be it in any domain. Apart from, I think one small thing I always try to get out there is, apart from technology plays the key role in building resilience. But apart from technology, what makes any business resilient would be the element of empathy, empathizing with your customer, with your people, and with the supporting the entire ecosystem is I think the strongest cornerstone of building a resilient business.
Nithin, last question to you on this section. What are the lessons for companies in financial services in general from the pandemic?
So the thing is, the big challenge in India, right, is a very small portion of the population actually invests in the capital markets or looks at saving outside fixed deposits or buying gold, right? And I think as a country, financialize, for us to prosper. And so, until like a year back, my belief was that India is probably not ready for the risk appetite. I mean, doesn't have the risk appetite to kind of look at financial assets. But I think that's kind of changed. If you were to ask me last Jan, what is the total target audience for financial services firms focusing on saving and investing, I would have said a subset of maybe 5 crore Indians who file income tax returns. Today it's around 1.5 crores, so maybe it could grow to twice of it, so become 3 crores out of 5 crores. But this whole rush of this 20 to 30-year-olds that we've seen in the last 1 year, right? People who are curious to learn about a different asset class and who are kind of ready to kind of go away from what their parents have done, which is invest in gold and real estate, right, and bank fixed deposits. So there is this huge opportunity, but the challenge is they're not very well educated in these products. So I think the opportunity, I think, in India right now is to go out and educate those people in terms of finance. And I believe the opportunity is actually to become like a advisory first ecosystem, because in India, you never had advisors, financial advisors as such. Right, if you look at something like the US, I think one of the reasons the market's grown so much is because it's usually advisory first. Professional advisors end up turning their customers professionals. In India, financial products historically have been sold by distributors who have had an incentive to make money from the manufacturers. So essentially, the distribution, the advisory that comes along with distribution is complicated, because the incentive is for the customer not knowing. If the customer doesn't know, you can earn more types, right? And now SEBI has put these enablers in place in terms of risk, RIAs and etc. So I think the onus is on businesses like us with large distribution to go build and help this advisory ecosystem. So where professional advisors come, train others and help them become professional in terms of finance.
Terrific. I think these are a very strong set of insights, from resilience to essential to future ready and financialize. I like the words that we are using. I'll move to the third part of this discussion, which is innovating for the world. Mark, let me start with you for this section. You talked about marginal farmers and small landholdings in your opening comments. Do you think the agri-tech startups in India can innovate for the world? A lot of the world, when you look at Africa or Southeast Asia or even Latin America, may have similar challenges like India, but we are yet to see innovation going global, especially in your sectors.
So we have a saying at Omnivore that we think of India as the laboratory for smallholder agriculture globally. It's a pretty simple logic. India is a very unique agricultural system because we have these 130 million smallholders adjacent to a modern industrial economy in the same country, side by side. And if you think about it, that's fairly unique. There are smallholders living in countries like Niger, Chad, right, that don't have anything comparable to that don't have that base of R&D and technical and managerial talent. And so we think that India is actually very well positioned to develop technologies for these smallholders globally, to apply frugal engineering to be able to hit the price points that those smallholders need. And we've seen this in our portfolio, where over the years, a number of our portfolio companies have gone after opportunities in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Southeast Asia, broadly the global South. A great example is a portfolio company of ours called Eruvaka, which is based in Vijayawada. I like to joke that I am definitely the first VC that ever closed a deal in Vijayawada in India. And they develop technologies for global aquaculture, right? You have to remember, India is now the world's largest shrimp exporter. But if you go to other regions, you have farmers that are a little bigger, a little more progressive. And so actually Eruvaka over the years has found more traction outside of India than inside. I would say exports are probably 80% of their sales. And the biggest market for them is Ecuador. So it's very much in line with the Prime Minister's vision of Make in India, right? Where you have a manufacturing operation in Andhra Pradesh selling to its largest market in Latin America. And we definitely think this is a model a number of our portfolio companies are going at. The only thing that I want to add to this is there are also opportunities for Indian agritech startups outside of smallholder agriculture, even in the developed world. One of our portfolio companies, Intello Labs, is doing exactly this. They are, they have a significant operation in California and leadership in the US, and they're doing the classic, SaaS, we code in India, we sell, in the US strategy, and seeing fantastic traction in the North American market. So I definitely think agritech, there is a huge amount of demand. There are massive challenges to overcome here in India, but there are certainly opportunities in select markets globally where what is being developed here is very relevant.
Sugam, moving on to you next, and especially for logistics companies or homegrown direct-to-consumer brands, how are they making an impact globally? Do you see e-commerce landscape and the cross-border trade increasing?
I think very interesting aspect post-COVID has been this pickup in the global expansion by D2C brands. First expansion has been, within the D2C brands itself. The number of D2C brands that have started in the last 1 year and how they have grown is, is just astounding. I am surprised every day. Every day on Instagram, I'm exposed to a new D2C brand. I see new products. I see new, edible category, beauty and health, and across segments there is a new D2C brand, and these brands are pushing boundaries with their marketing, with their products, and they're right, at the right stage of going global. And I think from the logistics point of view, a lot needs to be done to help these brands go global. The sector, the Indian logistics and shipping companies, they need to, we need to do a lot to enable the brands to take them to the world. And I think the technology and supply chain, both verticals, they need to go hand in hand and provide a, a process and a efficient process and a cost efficient solution to all these brands. The primary challenges are cost and the paperwork. Basically, the regulatory challenges and the paperwork challenges are there, which we are trying to solve. We are aggressively evolving our cross-border offering to help, making cross-border shipping easy for our customers.
Nithin, UPI is a great example. You've seen the payment transactions kind of skyrocketing every month. But probably it's largely an India-centric innovation. Are there examples that you are optimistic about that will be born in India but scale outside?
Yeah, in fintech, it's a little tough because every country has its own regulations, compliances, and underlying infra. Right, like for like a year, we were trying to spend some time figuring out if what we built in India can it be taken to the US. So we were trying to acquire one of those introducing brokers in the US, and then that's when we realized while the user experience is the easiest piece, you can just kind of a trading platform, be it India, be it US, be it anywhere in the world, will possibly look exactly the same, but the underlying infra is completely different, right? As in, and the way it works, etc. So I doubt if if it'll be easy for fintechs to building around savings, investing, or payments to easily kind of export what's built in India to anywhere else in the world. Actually, even if you look at globally, businesses have struggled, right? As in kind of putting all different countries into one user experience, or actually being able to export to others. I think in the broking space, Interactive Brokers has done a decent job, but it took them 25, 30 years to kind of go to every country and almost build it afresh. So it was not like they just used what was built in the US for another country, because the order management system, the risk management system of every country, the regulations, compliances, all of that changed. So I doubt in fintech if.
I understand fintech is a highly regulated, country-specific ecosystem. So innovating, but I'm sure, but we will figure out a way. And maybe when we speak next, there will be some green shoots over there.
No, but I think India is where all the opportunity is. So I don't know why I can't really look at some other.
Okay, that's true. Gazal, you are the pioneers of famous truck relay model. The Honorable PM also mentioned about it. Does it have the potential to be adopted globally, or are there other innovations that you think can be born in India and take a flight outside?
Sure. So relay does have a potential to get adopted anywhere in the globe where you have, shortage of truck drivers, or the salaries are high because the hardships involved in sort of long distance driving. Of course, every country has figured out unique solutions to it. I mean, Indian answer was very inhumane, where we would put 2 to 3 truck drivers in a cabin and ask them to drive back to back. South Africa, for example, has usually husbands and wives drivers, truck. So it's a family profession. So it's really the whole family is on the move and living in the truck. So it's manageable from a getting integrated into the society point of view. But yes, apart from relay, I think because of COVID and the whole sort of platform for making supply chains more digital, automated, and resilient, I do see that, the whole B2B SaaS space for, would sort of explode, not just in India, but globally as well. I mean, it's really surprising whether you look at even developed economies like the US or Europe. You may think that the technology adoption would have been at a, high sort of 90%, but that's not true. I mean, especially when we speak to our counterparts, and they struggle with, if not all, some of the problems that we face in India. So we could look at, interesting sort of, SaaS-based products. For example, even a simple thing, which is, IoT as a service, given hardware is getting commoditized now. How do you build sort of plug and play modules where, whether businesses or logistics companies can really track the metrics of shipment, of transit times very easily on a portal. So, it is really the time for, for that, logistics SaaS to sort of take off in India and build in India fruitfully for the world.
Very, very encouraging and heartening to note, Gazal. Thanks for sharing this. Let's move on to the last section. I will request the speakers to keep it sharp in the interest of time. And the last topic is, I think, probably the most important topic, the culture of innovation. So, Sugam, what innovations or technical challenges do you think are about to happen if we talk specifically about Indian e-commerce business as well as cross-border trade?
So I think, Samir, with the increasing demand from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, finding the right target audience, reaching out to them with the right content strategies, ensuring quicker deliveries to them, to every nook and corner of the country, and managing and predicting the returns, reporting and inventory management, cross-border logistics, and ensuring customer loyalty. These, this entire end-to-end process of from getting an order to ensuring the loyalty is all these different sections are going to see their own disruptive solutions coming in, and this is where a lot of innovation is going to happen. The right, I think a lot of SaaS platforms are already there and they're improving their offering by the day. We at Shyplite, we identify these problems day in, day out. We talk to our sellers, we talk to our customers. I myself talk to our customers and understand the challenges that they're facing. And then I sit out with the product teams and try to build solutions for these customers to enable them achieve their business goals. We try to understand the end objective that the business is trying to achieve. And as I said earlier, also the technology and supply chain verticals need to go hand in hand. They need to provide a cost-efficient solution to the growing cross-border, specifically the cross-border shipping need. It is right now the cost prohibitive a bit. I think at least that's what the business is thinking. In our estimate, there are about more than 150,000 merchants in India who need better cross-border logistics solution than what is currently out there. And we ourselves are launching our own, kind of a disruptive cross-border solution by the name of Shipmax to serve the needs of the Indian merchants to get them going globally.
Nithin, over to you next. And at Zerodha, what do you do on daily basis that you believe will help you continuously innovate and stay ahead of the market?
I think in today's world, especially when shifting between brokerage firms have become almost instant, so the better product usually wins. So to stay ahead in terms of a product, so a bunch of things that we do. One is we've thankfully built the business until now without having to raise any external capital. So all our focus is around building a product that helps the customer versus chasing revenue or growth. Just that whole idea with the entire team kind of helps us stay ahead in terms of product. Two is everything in the business we try to partner. So the thing is, as a business, we have found our hole, so we intend to go as deep as possible in this, and this is around our core competency. So anything which is adjacent to this, we partner. So that's where the incubator, funding startups, all of that comes. So it helps us remain focused on our core product. Three, everything is open source. So we don't, there's nothing enterprise in the business. So it kind of keeps it very light to run, innovate, and all of that. So I guess these three things.
Gazal, Rivigo was instrumental in cutting down shipping time by half, maybe more. So how do you sustain this culture of innovation in a large organization and keep it going?
So, I mean, there are books written on, building innovative culture, but in the last 7 years, what I've felt is, innovation is very, very closely, and it gets a little philosophical at this stage, which is very closely linked to humility and being in a state of, egolessness, I call it, because only when you feel that you don't know anything can you really sort of think creatively and bring that childlike inquisitiveness to solving a problem. Frankly, that is why relay trucking came about, because we were not from that sector, and a lot of people questioned us, saying that you're not from the sector, and to me that you're too educated for the sector, and we came at it with a very childlike excitement of solving this problem. And I feel as organizations grow, they feel that they know the customer and the product works, and to really be able to think afresh every time and to be able to have that not getting attached to your solution. You have to reduce yourself to zero and say, maybe I don't know what my customer wants, and let me start again, and start with that sort of sense of zero or not knowing anything. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's my sort of spiritual answer.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. I think this clearly does work. Gazal, thank you for sharing that simple little framework. Mark, last but not the least, since you invest in startups that are at the cutting edge of innovation, I would like to understand what is it that you look for while you're evaluating early stage startups, and how do you get comfort from inside on the culture front?
So let me answer those two questions very separately. So the way we evaluate startups is probably the same as every other VC evaluates startups. I call it the 4 T's, okay? Team, TAM, total addressable market, technology, and traction. Pretty standard stuff. We want to see a world-class team. We want to see a big enough TAM that it's an appropriate bet for venture capital. I oftentimes have to remind people that VC is a product and it's not suitable for all startups. It's not suitable for all companies. We want to see technological differentiation, not just a money war. And we want to see, great traction relative to stage, traction relative to their peer group, right? Something that makes it stand out. And all of that is absolutely consistent with probably every other VC in India. I think where our learnings over the last decade have kicked in is mostly about the right type of people to build for the agritech sector. The thing that we've seen again and again and again is that our archetypal founder, it's not a farmer, let's be clear. Not a lot of farmers, right, building agritech startups, but it's generally an IIT, NIT educated engineer who grew up in rural India, who grew up in, and that doesn't mean they grew up on a farm, right? Some of them did, certainly. But who grew up not in Koramangala, not in Malabar Hill, not in civil lines, right? Not in Alwarpet, right? Who grew up in rural India. And this is consistent across our entire portfolio where we've seen great success. The most recent investment we made is a company called Animal. And it's founded by 2 young women who met at IIT Delhi. One of them grew up in rural Rajasthan. Her father was a farmer, a dairy farmer, and she grew up with cows and buffaloes in her living room. And the other grew up in Hisar in Haryana, and they're building the largest dairy farmer platform in India. And what's great about that, and they both have fantastic work experience. One was at Pradalipi, the other was in consulting. They don't have to learn rural India, right? Because that, for an outsider, it's just too hard. Right, and so we've seen this again and again. Nukul from Bijak grew up, 80 kilometers, outside of Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh, right? Lots of people right, who grew up in these small towns or these very, very small regional cities or district headquarters. And then their profiles get normal, right? Then they went to IIT, then they went to IIM, then they went abroad for an MBA, then they had this great corporate job. But they are rooted fundamentally in rural India. They know that ecosystem, they know farmers, they grew up around farmers. And I think that's the edge that we look for.
Well, that's wonderful, very insightful, Mark. And I think we are about time. And I would like to thank Mark, you, Gazal, Nithin, Sugam for taking time out. I think I learned immensely about behavioral change and helping customers not make the mistakes. 4 T's from you, Mark, and why growing up in rural India is kind of a bedrock of driving agriculture, innovation in agriculture. Gazal, you spoke about going paperless and how your trucks are IoT ready to convert data into insights. And Sugam, you spoke about local to national to global. So really terrific, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for taking time out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.